Hi, I'm the Grow Boss. I write the Grow Book and Equipment Guide, and the number one worry that new growers have is taking clones. So I'm going to make a quick video, show you everything you need to know about taking clones using Clonex products, all right? And the first thing always is a healthy donor plant. Got to start with a healthy plant. So 3 to 5 days before you take your clones, boom, you're going to mist up your plant, because Clonex Mist prepares your plant so you've got the best, fastest rooting cuttings, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. Everybody wants those lots of branches, sick, bushy root cuttings when they come out from under the light. Next step, we're going to have to prepare our Clonex Root Riot starters. Let me show you how to do that. Okay, so we open up our Root Riot starter tray. It comes with a 15 mil Clonex rooting gel packet, which is enough to do all 50 starter plugs that are in the kit. Next thing, we've got to inoculate the starter plugs. We've got to get them ready for our clones. You're going to take a 3 mil pipette, Clonex solution. You're going to just poke a quick hole right in the top of the water bottle, 3 mil pipette, pull up 3 mils, put it in the water bottle, and that's everything you need to start a tray. If you want to start more than a tray and you're going to make a gallon of water, just use a 5 mil pipette per gallon. Then spray your plugs. Now you want them all to be about the same humidity. You're going to use all the water in the container, and if you get one that's a little dry, just squish it up and down a little. They're spongy. They're meant to keep that perfect oxygen to water ratio so your stems on your cuttings explode with roots. Now, if you're going to start seeds, forget about all that stuff you read on the internet floating in a water, chlorine solution, paper towels, forget all that. Put your seeds in the Root Riot starter plugs, leave them alone. And in 3 to 5 days from now when they pop, you don't need to go and pull off the seed shells off them. Those seeds will be just fine. Now, if you're not going to start from seed and you're going to start from clones, hey, that's great. You're going to get yourself a razor blade or a scalpel. Doesn't need to be sterile. You don't need to worry about any of that. Healthy plant, it's going to root. But you are going to have to decide on which branches to take. And some people will tell you to take them from lower down. Absolutely not. They'll say because they're woodsy and they last longer. Listen, when you use Clonex products and you've got a healthy plant, you don't have to worry about the cuttings lasting longer in there, right? And that's what they are. Because before they have roots, they're cuttings. Once they have roots, they're rooters or clones, depending on if you're the East Coast or the West Coast. But a cutting is a starter with no roots. That's why I always tell you guys, you're going to want to take them from the top with the fastest growth, because that'll get you the fastest starting clone with the most roots and the most growth shoots. So you get a really bushy plant from early on. Now, leaf will clone, so you got to be careful not to just take a leaf. You have to take a growth shoot, that part at the top. You're going to take a razor blade or a scalpel, and you're just going to make a little cut. So it looks something like this. Now, I know you think you have to keep this sterile and the whole process needs to be immaculate, but this is Clonex rooting gel. It actually seals the wounds on the clone and disinfects them. You're going to leave it in the Clonex rooting gel for 10 to 15 seconds. You're going to put it right into one of the Root Riot starter plugs. And if you have to take a lot of clones, that's fine too. You can take a lot of clones and you'll just keep them in a little bit of water. Then before you dip them in the rooting gel, you'll take them all out one more time, clean them up, slice the bottom so they're all the even sizes again, put them all Clonex rooting gel, 10 to 15 seconds, and right into the Root Riot starter plugs. And this brings up another one of those questions that you guys always have, that new growers are always worried about. Now that you've started, how often do you feed and how often do you water? So let's talk about that next. And the first thing you're going to need to know is that anytime you take a clone, the reason people chop off half the leaves is because clones sweat. They transpire. But without any roots to absorb water, if they sweat too much, they'll dehydrate and die. So you're going to put a 7-inch Mondi humidity dome with a hygrometer on top of the Root Riot starters, and you're going to want a 2-foot single bulb, a 1-bulb T5. And it's going to be on 24 hours a day, because that's all rooters get. A little bit of light, 24 hours a day. You don't want them to veg, You're not going to give them 18.6. You don't want them to grow. Just enough light to keep them rooting. Okay, so this is 2-foot T5 in a dome. And a couple of things you need to know is, at first, you're probably going to have to water these Root Riot starter plugs once a week. In between, I suggest you feed with Clonex solution on the weekends, and you water once with just straight water once during the week. Funny thing is, as the clones get roots, they'll hold the water longer. And if you were watering 2 times a week at the beginning, at the start of clone, you're only going to be watering like once a week toward the end, because the roots really hold that moisture. And again, you'll just water once during the week. You'll just water the starter plugs right below the plants, just like that. And then on the weekends, you're going to add a little bit of Clonex solution. Now after 2 weeks, once they start having roots, you can for sure take a little bit of Clonex Root Maximizer and soluble, put it right in the water, and water with that too. You can start adding Clonex Root Maximizer soon as you see some roots coming out of the bottom. Also, if you want to mist the plants, and I know a lot of you guys do this, you say, I'm going to lift the lid up and I mist it every couple of days. But you don't need to do that. All you need is just a little bit of humidity under the dome. Even 1 drop up in the corner is enough. But if you are going to spray your plants a couple times a week, just take the Clonex mist, the same thing you used on the plant to prepare for the clones, but a little bit of Clonex mist, feed your plants. You can use a little bit of Clonex mist or some Clonex Root Maximizer soluble. And then from here, after they've rooted, not just out the bottom, after your cuttings are now clones or rooters, because they've got roots coming out of all the sides, you're going to get ready to transplant them. And remember, you don't just want a few roots coming out of the bottom. You know, the 2-foot T5 light costs $1 a month. This is all the light you need for rooting. It's $1 a month. Take advantage of rooting. That's why we're spending the most time under the light. That's why you're investing in Clonex Root Maximizer. And not just in the nutrients, but in the time it takes to do this, because everybody that's growing cannabis is in such a rush. That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to take the time. You want to maximize each stage, especially when the light costs $1 a month, because you're never going to pay $1 a month to grow this plant again in its lifetime. So when they first start getting roots out the bottom, you're going to bottom the plant the same way that you top them. And I know there's people that are going to tell you, oh, you can scrape the bottom of the stem to get the roots to come out faster, or you can split the stalk. But I'm going to tell you, those growers that get that 99% success rate, those growers that have roots coming out of all 5 sides of the Root Riot starter plug, not just the bottom, the ones that get that kind of growth, they're the ones that have that 99% success rate. And I know there's lots of lights out there on the market, and there's lots of things that you're going to invent. You're going to put a heat light or an LED or whatever. Listen, all I want to tell you is, you know, I've seen 10,000 growers selling them hydro gear over the years, 10,000 of them. All I'm telling you is the #1 way to succeed when it comes to growing cannabis. And there's no secret to this. There's no rush to this. There's no magic that are going to make things happen faster. But I do want to also point out that there's nothing you can skimp by on either. When you're growing roots, get as many roots as you can. When you start to veg, let's talk about that now. Because what are you going to do when your clone starts to root? Okay, so it's been a couple of weeks now, right? We've watered with Clonex solution. We've added Clonex Root Maximizer soluble to the water that we fed the plants with. And now you've got explosive root growth. It's coming out of all 4 sides, including the 5th side, the bottom, and you're super proud, right? It's been a couple of weeks now, and it's just like you were hoping for. You're super excited. You've got all these great roots, and now it's time to transplant them into something bigger. Perfect. We got party cups. We're going to transplant them into something bigger. But before we do that, I just want to remind you guys that even though we transplant this into a bigger container, It's still the same plant. That's why I always tell you, don't do two things at once. If we're going to transplant, let's transplant, but we're going to keep it under the same light. So let me show you what I mean. We're going to just grab a little bit of Clonex granular. We're going to put it into the transplant hole for our next size container and drop our clone in. And remember, it's a clone now because it has roots. And we're going to let it sit in here, and we're going to put it back under the same light. And you can see where 50 cuttings used to fit before, you're only going to get like 5 or 6 of these clones in bigger containers. So if you did have 50, you're going to need more lights than this. But again, it's the same plant it was yesterday. So we're going to give it 24 hours of light. Just like we did before, 24 hours of light. Okay, so this is gonna, this clone is only gonna be able to survive in this container for a little while, right? I mean, like 5, 7, 10 days. You've got super fast root growth. You're gonna transplant using Clonex Root Maximizer Granular. You're gonna feed this new container with a little bit of Clonex solution, right? You're going to inoculate it with a little bit of Clonex Root Maximizer Soluble. You're going to water this container with that. And over the next 7 to 10 days, the roots are going to fill this container up. And you're going to have to go into something bigger. Let me show you what I mean. Now, if you're doing a sea of green, you're going to put this into a 1 gallon container. You're just going to start flowering. That's a sea of green. But if you're going to veg this plant for the next 4 weeks, this container is going to be too small. And how do you know when it's time to go into the next size container? When you turn your plant over, it's full of roots. She's got so many roots in there, the soil or cocoa doesn't fall out. So now we've got our 16-ounce container. We're going to go into a 1 gallon container, and because we really took the time to develop those roots and inoculate them with microbes and get a healthy starting plant with Clonex solution, she's ready to start vegging. But again, we've transplanted. So tomorrow, it's the same plant it was today, right? That means that she's going to get the same amount of light tomorrow that she did yesterday. But we are going to change the schedule to 18:6. And again, if you go from this size container to this size container, you can have fewer plants under the light. Now, we're not going to get into how much light you have or how far away or how many plants you have in this video. That's not what this video is about. In this video, I'm just breaking down, taking cloning, getting started in veg. Because just like when you transplant from your clone into your party cup, when you transplant in your party cup, you're going to do the same thing, Clonex granular, drop it in the hole. You're really going to inoculate the roots. Then you're going to feed the bucket with Clonex solution and inoculate all the media. And that's all you have to do to get healthy clones ready for veg. The trick is you can't do two things at once. When you're transplanting into a party cup, keep the light the same the next day. And when you're transplanting into a 1 gallon and moving into veg, don't give them more light. Treat the plant tomorrow like she was yesterday. You're going to use all these Clonex products, and then 4 weeks from now, when your 1 gallon pot is so full of roots that you're ready to transplant into a 3 or a 5, depending if you're going to keep vegging, you're going to do the same thing again. You're going to grab some Clonex Root Maximizer, sprinkle it around the hole in the next size pot. Look at those roots. You're going to drop your plant into the next size container, whether you're vegging for 4 weeks, another 4 weeks, or you're going straight into flower. And that's everything you need to know to take clones. Get them started, to get those 99% success rate clones, right? That's everything you need to know. And it starts with healthy plants, Clonex Mist, right? Then we went to the Root Riot starter plugs. We inoculated them with a little Clonex solution, started our seeds or clones. Then from there, we put them in our starter cups like this. We kept them under the same light. Of course, we put more Clonex Root Maximizer granule in there each time we transplanted. And that's how you get your plants ready for veg. I know there's lots of tips and tricks on the internet, but forget all that. The statistical probability of you having a successful start to veg is having a successful start to your cuttings. which is having a successful start from your plants, right? All right, I'm the Grow Boss. This was everything you need to know about starting seeds or clones using Clonex products. If you have more questions, you can pick up my book on thegrowboss.com. You can watch my videos about how to use Clonex, and if you want to call in with questions, you can watch my weekend webcast. Starts at 10 o'clock every Saturday or Sunday. I'm the Grow Boss. Thanks so much for watching Clonex products. Everything you need to start a clone or a seed.